Good day everyone! Welcome back again to Literature 101 with Sir MJ. For today's topic, we have the Panayan version of the story of creation, which is set in Philippine pre-colonial period and developed through oral lore among the region of Panay. To start our discussion, let's have a brief review on the characteristics of Philippine literature in pre-colonial occupation. The oral literature of the pre-colonial Filipinos bore the marks of the community. The subject was invariably the common experience of the people, constituting the village food gathering, creature and objects of the nature, work in the home, field, forest and sea, caring for children, personal beliefs, native philosophy, and so forth. These are evident in the most common forms of oral literature like the riddles, proverbs, and songs, which always seem to assume that the audience is familiar with the situations, activities, and objects mentioned in the course, which expressing a thought or emotion. The language of oral literature, unless the piece was a part of the cultural heritage of the Filipino community, like the epic, was a language of daily life. At this phase of literary development, any member of the community was a potential poet, singer, or a storyteller as long as he knew the language and had been attentive to the conventions of the forms. And one of the pre-colonial oral lore that produced by ancient Filipino civilization is the Panayan version of the story of creation that still lives today in the regions of Panay, where it was first told by the elderly members of their community. This myth has no identifiable author, but it was known in Panay where it is originated as a folk story by their ancient discussions and philosophy. Now, allow me to tell you the summary of this beautiful story. The Panayan version of the story of creation. In the beginning, there was no heaven or earth, only a bottomless deep and a world of mist. Everything was shapeless and formless. The earth, the sky, the sea, and even the air were almost mixed up. Then from the depth of this formless void, there appeared two gods, Tungkong Langit and Alunsina. Just where the two deities came from, it was unknown. However, it is related that Tungkong Langit fell in love with Alunsina, and after so many years of courtship, they got married and had their abode in the highest realm of ethereal space, where the water was constantly warm and the breeze was forever cool. It was in this place where the order and regularity first took place. Tungkong Langit was an industrious, loving, and kind god whose chief concern was how to impose order over the whole confused setup of things. He assumed the responsibility for the regular cosmic movement. On the other hand, Alunsina was a lazy, jealous, and selfish goddess whose only work was to sit by the window of their heavenly home and amuse herself with her pointless thoughts. Sometimes, she would go down from the house, sit by a pool near their doorstep, and comb her long jet black hair all day long. One day, Tungkong Langit told his wife that he would be away from home for some time to put an end to the chaotic disturbances in the flow of time and in the position of things. The jealous Alunsina, however, sent the sea breeze to spy on Tungkong Langit. This made the latter very angry upon knowing about it. Immediately, after his return from the trip, he called this act to her attention, saying that it was ungodly of her to be jealous, there being no other creature living in the world except the two of them. This reproach was resented by Alunsina, and a quarrel between them followed. Tungkong Langit lost his temper. In this rage, he divested his wife of powers and drove her away. No one knew where Alunsina went. She merely disappeared. Several days after Alonsina went, however, Tungkong Langit felt very lonely. He realized what he had done. Somehow, it was too late even to be sorry about the whole matter. The whole place, once vibrant with Alonsina's sweet voice, suddenly became cold and desolate. In the morning, when he woke up, he would find himself alone, and in the afternoon, when he came home, he would feel the same loneliness creeping deep in his heart because there was no one to meet him at the doorstep or soothe the aching muscles of his arms. For months, Tungkong Langit lived in utter desolation. He could not find Alonsina, try hard as he would. And so, in his desperation, he decided to do something in order to forget his sorrows. For months and months, he thought. His mind seemed pointless, his heart became weary and sick, but he must do something about his loneliness. One day, while he was sailing across the regions of the clouds, a thought came to him. He would make a big basin of water below the sky so that he can see the image of his wife if she were just somewhere in the regions above. And the sea appeared. However, Alonsina was never seen. After a long time, the somber sight of the lonely sea irritated Tungkong Langit, so he came down to the middle world and created the land. Then he planted this with grass, trees, and flowers. He took his wife's treasured jewels and scattered them in the sky, hoping that when Alonsina would see them, she might be induced to return home. The goddess's necklace became the stars, her comb became the moon, and her crown became the sun. However, despite all this, Alonsina did not come back. And up to this time, the old folks in Panay say that Tungkong Langit is alone in his palace in the skies. Sometimes, he would cry out of his pent-up emotions and his tears would fall down upon the earth. The people say that rain is Tungkong Langit's tears, and that is why in some localities in the island of Panay, the first rain on May is received with much rejoicing and sacrifice. Accidentally, when it thunders hard, the old folks also say that it is Tungkong Langit sobbing, calling for his beloved Alonsina to come back, entreating her so hard that his voice thunders across the fields and countryside.
Have you enjoyed the story? What are the things and ideas that play in your mind right now? Hold still, because at this moment, we are down to the part where we are going to discuss some of its integral literary elements enable for us to clear all the questions that we have. So please, stay tuned.
First is the settings. The settings of Tungkong Langit and Alonsina is happened in ethereal space and in the earth. The ethereal space is the place where the characters emerged and where they lived as a couple. The earth is the place or the world created by Tungkong Langit in his desolation for the presence of his wife Alonsina. Second is the plot. This literary piece was told in chronological order. Also, it is characterized by cause and effect relationship for specific things like when Alonsina ordered the breeze to spy Tungkong Langit when he was fixing the chaotic disturbances of time that happened somewhere in ethereal. The effect of this act of Alonsina made Tungkong Langit to be mad of her. That's why he drove away his wife to somewhere with his enormous power. This act also caused to the very reason why the universe, Earth, and humanity was created, and why the people of Panay thought that the rain and thunder interpreted as an action by Tungkong Langit in his desolation for his wife, begging her to come back again. Third is the theme. In this literary piece, there are two major themes. First is the story of creation of humanity, world, and the universe, and the other one is how men and women behave on their relationship, including the roles they portrayed in everything as a divine creators of this world and the roles being dictated or influenced by the society. For instance, when Tungkong Langit was the in charge of everything and the ruler of his own, as it is written in the destiny of every man that in the marriage they are the people who rule in their relationship. Also, when Aluncina was the in charge to wait for her husband to come home and soothe his aching muscles in his arms, was to be the destined roles of women to care for their family and her husband. Tungkong Langit and Aluncina is ultimately a story about love and loss. Fourth is the dialogue. The purpose of the dialogue was to tell the relationship of two deities and how the world was created in effect of what they had been through as a couple. At first, the story might be interpreted as a typical one, but in the end, we will realize how their quarrel resulted in the creation of the world, including the reason why the Panayan people had interpreted the rain as the tears of Tungkong Langit and the thunder was his voice calling out for Aluncina to come back again. The dialogue also depicts the reality of relationship being portrayed today by most of couples. Lastly, the imagery. The images used for this piece is visual imagery. It displays the role of men as more powerful beings and women, despite of her opinions and rights, she remained quiet and unheard. And at the center of the story revolves on the character of a man that cares about the responsibility on the things he created and on the things what he have done.
Now, we are going to focus our discussion with the characters, and later on, I will tell you their attitudes and characteristics.
Tungkong Langit and Aluncina is ultimately a story about love and loss. At the heart of this classic, it aims to reconcile how there can be a benevolent God when there is so much suffering in the world. This story has a striking parallel to the creation story in Genesis. Tungkong Langit was a loving and hardworking God. He wanted to impose order over the whole confused world. He decided to arrange the world so that heavenly bodies would move regularly. On the other hand, Aluncina was a lazy, jealous, and selfish goddess.
Based on the attitudes of the characters, who do you think is the character that played the crucial role throughout the story? And what are the other issues addressed on this narrative?
Now, let's discuss the realization and the moral lesson of this story.
This story teaches us that jealousy can destroy the relationship of two people, even how much they love each other. This story is not only suitable for couples, but also for sisters, brothers, and others who have the relationship with someone. If we cannot control our emotions, our jealousy towards the others might move us to do the things that would cause harm to that person or even to ourselves. It can also lead us to make the decisions that we might regret for our entire life. This story teaches us to be careful in every action that we will take because we can change what we have done already. It's difficult to take away the pain that we cause to someone. If we really love them, we can trust them with all of our heart. Our emotions are very strong that it can easily manipulate us to think unnecessary things, whether good or bad. It can also lead us to the situations that would get us trouble. This story might be a lesson for us to be wise in our decisions because these decisions can make us feel happy or sad. We have to think twice and analyze every little thing so that we won't regret whatever situation will come to our fate. Gender roles are also emphasized in this piece. In the ancient times, people are not excused on some roles because genders has its own designated journey, where you cannot change your fate into something extraordinary or something that is not familiar on your social identity. As a result of this, men had a stronger influence and power among the rest, and women, despite of her rights, talents, and wisdom, they suffered unbearable journey because of their destiny to become a tool for household chores. Today, we are given a huge change on this norm because now we have obtained equal platform for all gender, even those who are part of LGBT community. We are lucky that we have set freedom from this norm, for we are now allowed to do whatever we want. Among all the subjects displayed in this literary piece, I think the most important is the situation when Tungkong Langit decided to do good things in order to counter his sorrow and loneliness. Nowadays, people tend to become weak whenever they become alone and lonely, especially when we do something unexpected decision that results to the unfortunate fate and pain of someone we love so dearly. Despite all his sorrows, Tungkong Langit chose to do something wonderful that would please her wife to come back again. We have to be like Tungkong Langit. We have to gear up ourselves with braveness and resiliency so that when the dark days will come, we won't be affected so hard that will result for worse things. And for the character portrayal, these lines are from the scene when Alonsina still went missing and Tungkong Langit made their stops as the stars, the moon, and the sun. But still, Alonsina didn't come back. Alonsina, my love, where are you? Please come back to me. This place is very dull, and I know something that would please Alonsina to come back. These beads on your necklace will be the stars at the night. This comb will be the moon. And finally, your crown will be the sun in the sky to light up the whole world.